While there's not a lot currently happening in North America with breaking news on the automotive end, over the pond, actually both ponds, the Atlantic and the Pacific, over the Atlantic in Germany, we're going to talk about Volkswagen and how bad the strikes are going to be for them. The company is seemingly unraveling, but across the Pacific pond, BYD is looking to outsell Ford and Honda this year. Guys, grab your snacks and drinks, buckle in, and make sure you're subscribed for more automotive updates here on the channel from the news industry as well as reviews. Tomorrow I'm heading to the East Coast. I'm going to be driving a whole bunch of Toyota and Lexus models at kind of like a mini local event for Toyota. So stay tuned for that. So Volkswagen is experiencing strikes. Now, why are they experiencing strikes? Well, Volkswagen's not doing so hot. And so in order to have a healthy profit margin, they have to cut wages. Volkswagen has the highest wages of any manufacturer in the entire world. All right, so they're saying, hey, workers, you're going to have to take a pay cut, which worker would want that? And two, they're saying, and we're going to have to close many plants because we can't afford to keep them open anymore. All right, so they're going to cut plants, cut production, cut jobs, and this is one of the largest employers in the country of Germany, and it's a huge part, the auto industry in Germany, it's a huge part of the economy there. So we're going to get into this. It is escalating in heat, escalating in severity, and we're on the fourth round of strikes. Volkswagen workers said its management had one last chance to compromise on Monday or risk strikes on a scale not previously seen happening next year in 2025. It's already unprecedented. Volkswagen has never closed a plant in Germany, and they're probably going to close at least 2 to 3. Volkswagen staff downed tools. I don't know exactly what that means, if they took them offline. I don't know. But anyways, at 9 different German sites, while thousands marched with flags and whistles to a square in Wolfsburg, where the automaker is headquartered. And they're gathering there to listen to the union leaders. Now, one of the big reasons Volkswagen has to cut costs is they have to compete in Asia. They cannot compete in Asia. We'll get into this here in a little bit because of, you could say the Chinese government subsidies for Chinese brands. But Volkswagen makes their profit largely in China. So the Chinese market has been able to allow them to have such high wages in other parts of the world, especially in Germany. Okay, so the Chinese market has been funding the high profits and the high wages in Germany, but that market is dwindling fast for them. Profits are dwindling fast in China, not just for Volkswagen. It's pretty much anyone who is not BYD and Tesla and maybe some other Chinese automakers. It's almost like Volkswagen would rather import cheaply made Chinese cars into Europe instead of make them in Europe, because guess what? There's cheaper labor over there, cheaper materials in China, and exporting them across the world to Europe is far cheaper than actually making the vehicles in Germany, because, energy costs are high in Europe, labor costs are extraordinarily high, especially in Germany, and the supply chain just isn't nearly as efficient as it is in China. Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz he's not doing well in the polls, but he's warning against Volkswagen factory closures. Currently, workers are staging 4-hour strikes. Previously, it was just 2-hour strikes, but they're going to keep amping up the strikes until they get what they want. Today, the workforce is taking a stand in the form of a nationwide warning strike. Everywhere, at all locations and all shifts, Volkswagen employees are stopping work. Not for 2 hours as they did last time, but for 4 hours. And if that isn't enough, after New Year's Eve, so in 2025, there'll be an escalation in strikes that the company has never experienced. They're hoping that they can find a solution before the year end, but there is no solution, in my opinion, other than reducing wages, closing plants. Eventually, there will be a 24-hour strikes and open-ended strikes. Okay, I'm assuming open-ended strikes meaning a continuous strike many days until they get what they want. Also, the demand for their cars in Europe has fallen for Volkswagen. So when that happens, they have to incentivize their cars more heavily. Their profit margins were already slim with their high wages and high energy and material costs. And then you have to start incentivizing your cars. It's like the European market is toast for them. It's almost like Volkswagen at this point only sees a Chinese produced auto company and export from there to the world. I know that's a little simple minded of me thinking that, but it's almost like that's the only way that they can see a way out, is just make all their cars in China cheaply and then export them from there. Because in China, their demand for Volkswagen is also dipping because BYD, other Chinese automakers, are growing. We need to continue to cut costs. We need to reduce overcapacity. And it's not just Volkswagen cutting capacity. Well, in China, everyone but the major Chinese automakers is cutting capacity. But if you look at Nissan, they've laid off like 9,000 people, reduced global capacity by 20%. Volkswagen struggling quite heavily here with their home market just being in complete turmoil. I could keep going, but it's going to be a bloodbath of loss of employees and a loss of trust that the economy is very much dependent upon in Germany. All right, we need to keep moving. BYD will outsell Ford and Honda by achieving their 24 sales target. They've already delivered 3.76 million vehicles by November. Now, before we just give them a round of applause, the entire Chinese auto industry is benefiting massively from government incentives. Check this out. The number of subsidized car trade-ins totaled more than 4 million as of November 18th, according to official data. Now, without such trade-ins, year-to-date car sales may have actually shrunk, but instead there was a 4.4% in the January through November period. In America, if you guys remember, in 2008, 2009, we had the cash for clunkers where you got, I think it was about $2,000 or something on old automobiles to support, the governmental motors, right? That's what people called General Motors after the government had to bail them out. They had to bail out Dodge as well, if I remember. Everyone was benefiting, whether you were bailed out by the government or not. All the manufacturers were benefiting from the cash for clunkers incentive to trade in old cars. I don't know if we'll ever see that again here in North America. I think Trump wants to have, the interest? You guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but the interest on car payments to be waived off as tax deductible. That could be happening to prop up the auto market here in the United States, but that would affect all manufacturers, of course. It's similar to this trade-in program. So back to BYD. 3.76 million vehicles in the first 11 months, including 506,000 in November. Okay, so if they keep November up, which is impossible, but if 506,000 times 12 is 6 million. 6 million units. Guys, that's top 5 automakers around the world. So we're seeing strong sales of plug-in hybrids. Yes, you have their battery electrics, but BYD also has very strong range extenders with somewhere around let's say 70 miles of electric range, and then you have a small gasoline engine on board for the range extender, and they get really good efficiency between those two powertrains built into one vehicle. And they're more affordable than the traditional plug-in hybrid to make as well. And that's why companies like Hyundai is going to be making range extender EVs instead of plug-in hybrids or traditional plug-in hybrids in the near future. So the Chinese market makes up 90+% of BYD sales. They have 17.1% of the market in 2024. That's almost a 5% increase in market share in just 1 year. That is insane growth. Volkswagen And their two joint ventures with SAIC and FAW took a combined 11% market share. All right, so they're way behind BYD at this point. And look at this flip-flop. And this is why Volkswagen is seemingly screwed right now. Last year, Volkswagen's two joint ventures combined for 14.2% of the market share, which was still beating BYD. Now they're getting smoked by BYD, 11% versus 17%. So huge reversal in just 1 year. And they remind us, yes, here we go. BYD, if they sell 6 million units in the next 12 months for 2025, they'll be as big as General Motors, Stellantis. Here's the thing. Both of these companies are dwindling due to a shrinking car market around the world, but especially in China for these automakers, okay? Outside automakers that have traditional joint ventures in China are shrinking in favor of 100% Chinese-owned companies or Tesla. Tesla's still doing okay. They're kind of the exception for external automakers. Now, what's mind-blowing? So we have so many automakers, actually every automaker, I mean, including Toyota in China, everyone's laying people off because of the lack of demand in their vehicles compared to BYD and Geely and other Chinese automakers, Chery, Li Auto, NIO, etc. There's so many Chinese automakers, like dozens. All the foreign companies are laying off people. Mitsubishi just dipped out permanently. Nissan's shrinking in there. Honda, all the Japanese are shrinking. All the European are shrinking. We just talked about Volkswagen. What General Motors is taking a $5 billion charge off in China due to restructuring and declining value of its joint venture. Which is, of course, bleeding sales and market share. So while everyone else is shrinking, contracting, especially in the Chinese market, that's not a Chinese automaker. Look at BYD. They just added 200,000 jobs for increased production capacity and parts manufacturing. That is mind-blowing. So they have 1 million employees, BYD, up from around 700,000 at the end of 2023. They seem like a juggernaut at this point with like uncapped growth potential. They are still asking dozens of their suppliers to cut prices because BYD wants to snuff out the entire market. They want to be the king of China, and I totally understand. Like, every automaker wants to be the biggest, most powerful automaker they probably can be. Toyota's to the point where they don't really want to grow anymore. Last year, we saw a record volume of all time. But they said that it came at the cost of burning out their employees. All right. So it seems to be a theoretical limit of around 11 million vehicles per automaker. Okay. But things are changing, right? A lot of the foreign, in China especially, if all the traditional automakers from the West or even Japan have to close up shop there, I don't think it's going to come to that, but they're all going to play a very minor role there and just going to have to accept their fate as smaller companies. Now, they won't be able to siphon huge profits from the Chinese market anymore. It's cutthroat now, like like never seen before, with the rise of Chinese autos. And so no one's really making money in China. Even BYD's asking their suppliers to reduce costs. If you take a Chinese car in China and compare it to something of considerable specs here in the United States, they cost about 3 times more here in the United States. Sometimes more, sometimes less, just depends, but it's significantly cheaper over there. That's really all I had to share with you guys. It continues to happen, the shrinking of Western autos, or should I say traditional OEMs, because I'm including the Japanese here, and the growth of BYD. Now, BYD, the Chinese have an uphill battle in front of them with tariffs and banning of their cars in certain markets. If you look at South America, Central America, Southeast Asia, where they don't have any tariffs or laws to keep Chinese autos out of, these brands are blowing up and soaking up market share quickly because they're so affordable. And it'll be interesting to see what happens if Chinese autos will ever be able to make their way into the United States market with significance. You can look at the Lincoln Nautilus and then a few like Polestar 2, for example. There are some Chinese cars that are made in China, imported into the United States, but for how long? And will they ever succeed here? The downfall of them not being allowed in the United States market, or the North American market, really, is that we'll never really get cheaper cars unless something major happens. But if something major happens, typically things get more expensive. So I don't know. Will cars ever be around $15,000 to $20,000 again, like they are in China, brand new, sometimes cheaper? No, they're not. And we'll never know how good, unless I go to China or South America or something to try these. I'll never know how good these cars are. So anyways, I'm just going to shut it down. I'll see you guys in the comments and stay tuned for more auto industry updates. Peace out.